Thank you. I believe there's one question from that side.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Najib. I'm from KPJ Healthcare Berhad. I've got a question on healthcare, actually. Currently, the private healthcare industry is, in a way, facing shortage of skilled doctors in terms of subspecialists. I was wondering whether the government could assist in allowing us to bring in foreign doctors at our hospitals, as well as another question is on Sabah and Sarawak. Currently, doctors from Semenanjung apparently would require work permits to practice in Sabah and Sarawak. So we would like to provide more access to the Sabah and Sarawak people in terms of medical wise. So what can the government do to assist in that matter?
Okay.
Thank you.
Overall, I think the situation of the numbers of doctors in this country is quite healthy. And we might be faced with a situation, we might actually have excess doctors because at the present time, from next year, we predict 5,000 new doctors will actually enter into the market. And at the present moment, our ratio of population to doctors now is, I think, 1:768, which is actually quite commendable. And the ideal situation of the WHO is 1:400, and we probably will reach it in a few years' time. And the problem which we are facing as far as the government sector is concerned, because the government is the training body. Of course, the private sector is the beneficiary of this training. And being the training body, we have to have enough capacity to train these people. And I think our biggest problem is the capacity to train. I think next year, for placement of housemen, to have adequate training in our government hospitals, will I praise from. When I did my housemanship about 30 years ago, in the unit I was practicing, probably there were only about 2 to 3 doctors per unit. Now, if you go to GHKL, there are about few hundred doctors in every unit. And there's a ratio of 1 doctor to 2 patients. And probably those patients will be the luckiest in the world because there are actually 2 patients are taken care by 1 doctor in our wards. So we want to make sure that there is an adequate opportunity for training. Now, coming to answer his question is not about the general doctors, by the specialists and the super specialists. I recognize there is an area in which we have to improve. And what we are trying to do is to actually increase the routes of training for these people. Now we just have been over-relying on the training opportunities in our public universities, which have got limited number of places to train our specialists. We are looking how we can actually widen this. We are bringing foreign programs, which we used to do, like the Royal Colleges of the United Kingdom, where our doctors used to go and train and get accredited. We are trying to bring them here so that training, that accreditation can be done locally. We are also looking how can widen the scope of training so we can increase. From now, we increase the number of training, which was about 300 to 400 doctors only were going to specialization, to 1,000 from 2013. We will increase this number of doctors. We actually can go to specialization and subspecialization so that there will be adequate number of specialists in this country to meet our ratio. As to whether we will allow foreign doctors to work, there is no hard and carve for policy on this. At the present moment, we have foreign doctors who are working both in the government sector and in the public universities, but we are a bit hesitant of opening it, the doors completely wide to the private sector for fear that might, like our experience in other fields, might actually lead to overflooding of foreigners coming into a country. But on a case-to-case basis, in which specialities which are not available in this country, and there is an attempt to actually get them very seriously, the Malaysian Medical Council and the ministry definitely will look into those kind of requests to actually facilitate it. Thanks.
There was a question on the permit for doctors from Semenanjung to work in.
Right. Actually, doctors from Semenanjung are always welcomed by Sabah and Sarawak to work in the government sector. The issue only starts when they want to go into the private sector. And this is related to the other policies about the formation of Malaysia.
Would anyone like to comment on that? Right. Yes, I'm asking you, since you...
No, my wife is from Semenanjung. So our two children, as far as they're concerned, they are Malaysians. But of course, when Sabah and Sarawak became part of Malaysia, you know, a lot of people in Sabah and Sarawak feel very concerned and worried that many of the people in Semenanjung take over their jobs. So that is why part of the condition was, at the time when it became part of Malaysia, that when West Malaysians want to take over jobs there, they better ask for work permit. This is very much part of why Sabah and Sarawak feel threatened, if you like, but if you open it so widely, then many of the people from Sabah and Sarawak will take over the jobs. So therefore, in terms of affirmative action, that is effectively affirmative action. So this restrictions isn't just for doctors. It applies to everybody, engineers, mana-mana kerja lah. But in the main, when I worked in Shell at that time, a lot of people from Semenanjung wanted to work for Shell in Sabah and Sarawak. I know that very rarely there's rejection for someone that takes on the job, very, very rarely. So it's procedural, but you know, that's part of what we came out as a country when we came together as a country in Malaysia before. That was the deal that Sabah and Sarawak got together. So I think from Sabah and Sarawak, if you push it too hard, many of them will say, you know, there is a lot of oil and gas that we produce in Sabah and Sarawak, but the oil and gas revenue is shared collectively for the whole Federation of Malaysia. So don't try too hard.
Thank you. I think we'll take one more question, the final question, before we wrap up. There's a lady over there.
Hello. Okay. All right. My name is Wei Wen, and I'm a reporter from Focus Malaysia. So we heard a lot about ETP and your successes, and a lot of it is focused on creating Malaysian jobs and making sure that the Malaysian economy grows at a reasonable and sustainable pace. But on the other hand, we are a trading nation, and there's an increasing need for us to open our markets, especially with the entry of AEC, RCEP, TPP. So how that might, you know, decrease in certain parties to say opening our markets at this moment when our skill sets are not there. Are we ready for it? That's one question. And how do you balance the need to grow Malaysian economy and opening the economy up to other nations as well?
In life, it is about balance. Yeah, as Idris said, you cannot be pushing too hard for more Malaysian, peninsular Malaysian doctors to work in Sabah Sarawak or engineers. They will raise the issue of oil and gas, and it can be counterproductive. Yeah? And we'll have lots of problems. I've been using this analogy. Yeah? When Sabah and Sarawak became part of Malaysia, they insisted on certain conditions, 20 or 19 or whatever it is. Yeah? And we agreed to those conditions. Because, I mean, this is a compromise. So similarly, when it was sacrifice on both parts, on the part of peninsular people and also Sabah Sarawak. Sabah Sarawak, they've got to give up oil revenue. For us, yeah, we do not have the freedom to practice medicine and engineering in Sabah Sarawak. So it's a compromise. So similarly, when you go out to the world, it's a question of balance. Yeah? You mentioned about skill sets, yes, but we can never be ready. I mean, you say, when we'll be ready to embrace the world? We'll never be there. So what we're doing in government is to balance. We have been involved in FTAs, ASEAN, for example. We're going to have an integrated market 2015, ASEAN Economic Community, so there will be lots of Chinese products coming to Malaysia. I've been giving this analogy. If you go to Nilai, for example, you can buy a dress for 50 ringgit, a good quality dress. Those days, it could be 100 ringgit. So that's a benefit to the consumer. So balancing the interest of the consumer and the producer. The producer will be affected, but consumers like you and me, you go to Nilai, you have access to quality products from China, from Indonesia, whatever. Yeah? So this is the benefit of free trade. On the other hand, you have producers which are going to be displaced. So for the government, it's a tough balancing act. I know in the case of TPP, a very controversial agreement, we have to do this as well. So in the end, we got to do a national interest analysis, the benefits and costs. But to say that we're not ready, you know, we're not going to be part of the world, as a trading nation, we're going to losing end. Therefore, our policy is to engage with the world, to open up our markets. At the same time, we're mindful of our people, the interests which have got to be protected. So it's a question of balance. The question is, which end of the spectrum you're going to be? Are you going to be at the end where you open up completely, or you at the end where you close, relatively? So our view is, we have to be as open as we can, at the same time, mindful of the interests of our people as well. Thank you. It's a very long-winded answer. I haven't got a reply, but that's our policy. Engage with the world, at the same time, to build capacity. Capacity building is very important. We have to face competition. Otherwise, we'll not be a developed nation 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to answer that question? Okay, thank you very much. I think before we wrap up, I would like to ask perhaps each of our distinguished panel to just state what your challenges, hopes for the future as we move into 2014 towards the goal of ETP.
As what I said just now, biggest challenge, because we are fully aware that ICT broadband is going to be a big enabler to the growth of the nation. Everything is related to Internet of Things of today. The next thing is about, you talk about ICT-related economy. There are many sectors that we have to look into it. You talk about service sector, you about manufacturing, content, and so on and so forth. And content is one of the biggest things that we are aiming today. You talk about IRD Iskandar development. I just visited a few days ago. New Pinewood Studio is going to be a very exciting thing for, I think, a person like you and Zaleha. You are very interested with content and so on. That's one of the biggest Pinewood Studio in the world. That means we are focusing into a new era altogether. ICT, you talk about creative industry. Creative industry can be an enabler to a lot of other things. You talk about Lord of the Rings. We helped New Zealand economy in terms of tourism. You talk about Winter Sonata of Korea, for instance. You talk about related to tourism and many other things. But another area that we have to look into it, to have more of ICT or creative industry kind of entrepreneurship, we need more of private investment to come in. Means you look at United States. I had the opportunity to be with the Prime Minister about a few months ago to Silicon Valley. Over there, they don't talk about everything government. A lot of new idea. Young people, you talk about Mark Zuckerberg, you talk about those in the Twitter, in the Facebook, in the Google and so on, young people and so on. There are people who are looking into it. They have thousands of, business angels looking at ideas and how ideas they incubate and accelerate it, because there are a lot of what they call it venture capitalists around. In America, they are very proud that they have 1,000 venture capitalists. In China, they have 500. In India, they have about 300, that kind of thing. But the whole Southeast Asia, they have only about 20 venture capitalists who are looking at idea to be incubated, to be accelerated, and to expand into the big thing. These are the things that we have to look into it. Otherwise, ideas, and they come to government. Ideas, they come to the government. And dependency, highly dependency of the government is a big challenge that we have to face today. And looking at the Prime Minister's presentation just now, in terms of private investment, we are coming to the more than 50% of our investment in private investment is very inspiring. We have to look into it as something that be part of the future development of our nation. Thank you.
Dato Sri Wahid.
Thank you. Maybe I can focus on the third pillar of the new economic model, which is sustainability. Now, for Malaysia to achieve our target of becoming an advanced nation, we must make sure, among others, that we manage our finances in a sustainable manner, in a responsible manner. And if we've looked at our financial position, we've been running a fiscal deficit position for many years, from as high as 6.6% back in 2009. Now, we knew that that wasn't sustainable, and we've started the program to bring down the deficit to achieve a balanced budget come 2020. This year, we are expected to be at 4.4% level in terms of deficit to GDP, and for next year, the target is 3.5%, and in 2015 will be 3%. Now, to do so, we need to broaden and increase our revenue base and optimize our capital expenditure. Now, what I would like to say here is that these are the necessary medicines that we have to undertake as we try to optimize our capital, our spending, so to speak. We do need to rationalize some of the subsidies we are so used to, and then to allocate the resources to places that will be more needed. Of course, there will be the unintended consequences of higher price of goods, but we do have programs to address the people who will be affected. Even in the case of the tariff electricity hike, we are talking about making sure that the 70% of the households will not experience any hike, meaning that those people who are conserving energy, utilizing less than 300 kilowatt hour per month, and paying currently 77 ringgit per month, they will not experience any increase come next year. So I guess it is not easy trying to balance a lot of things, but my point is that if we continue with our discipline, manage our government finances well, it will be welcomed by the international community. It will result in not only our credit rating to be maintained, but even possibly an upgrade sometime in the future. When that happens, our cost of borrowing as a country will come down, and that will facilitate more investments into the country, creating more job opportunities, and therefore creating more opportunity for people to have high income. So I guess the request to the people would be to appreciate the situation that we are in, and we in government are doing this for the benefit of the country. Thank you.
Yes, as we continue, maybe I'll leave it at the Sri Idris for the
I-
last,
I-
maybe,
I
because
wrote-
you're in the driver's seat. Maybe I'll ask Dato Sri Mustapa, and you go last.
Thank you. I was going to say the last word. Okay. Thank you. 3-4 points. Firstly, we need to create quality opportunities, job opportunities. Yeah, that's number one. It's very important to create hope, especially for young people. We have a great future in this country. That's number one. Number two, making sure that this growth is inclusive. Regions in Malaysia, states in Malaysia, ethnic groups. I think that's very important. And of course, you need to have a buy-in. Whatever you do, we need to do a bit more on communications. So those are two very important points. Number three, we have to compete. Competition is getting more intense. We need to produce goods of high quality, prices which are competitive. Human capital development and quality of human capital is very important. This is going to be the distinguishing feature. I mean, if you want to be ahead of the pack, you have to be excellent. And quality of human capital, I think, is one of the key areas that we need to work on. Finally, we have to do better than other countries or other nations or other bangsa. This spirit of Malaysia Boleh has got to be content. Yes, we have done a lot of things in the past, but there's no guarantee that we can repeat those success stories in the future. Therefore, we really have to work on the content, the quality. Otherwise, we're going to be not going to be able to achieve 2020. So it's all about quality, about creating hope for the young people, about inclusiveness. Finally, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of 2013, and all the best for 2014. Thank you.
Yes, that's Sri Subramaniam.
I think when the Prime Minister introduced this topic just now, I think he well defined that this economic transformation program is the response of a responsible government to face a potentially difficult financial situation. When he came out with all those financial crises and how it faced with the situation, how was this government actually going to move forward to make sure that we can weather those difficulties and actually progress along the way. So that is how the whole concept of the economic transformation program was actually born. And if you look at the program itself, apart from promoting the economic transformation, which has been explained in detail in the presentations today, it has also brought forward transformation in various other aspects of our country. One is, of course, you look at the SRI, the Strategic Reform Initiatives, which were created to form the basis of this economic transformation. It actually led to good governance system, good financial system, and putting the infrastructure of government actually ideal for the purpose of economic transformation. At the same time, it also brought forward along it educational transformation and skill set transformation, because it was felt that that was needed to actually be the catalyst which will support us in this economic transformation program. And the result of that actually leads to what I will call a social transformation, whereby the income of the people actually increase and job opportunities get better, and better quality jobs are there for Malaysians, and through which, of course, there is a social transformation which actually leads and permeates to all levels of Malaysian society. So that is the most important thing. I think overall, the economic transformation program cannot be looked at as in isolation, but as a factor which actually correlates many other forms of transformation which interrelates educational and social transformation together.
And finally, also perhaps what we can do as a community at large.
Thank you. Actually, some of you may know I do have a column in the newspaper. In today's article, I wrote about 4 challenges for us moving forward. 4. The first one, I will not mention them in the order I wrote them in the article, but clearly 4. The first one is education. We talked about education, how tough it is as a challenge for us to move forward. We have 400,000 teachers. If you want to deal with that, that is a massive transformation you need to do to upgrade that. There's tremendous work we need to do moving that forward. That's not an easy one. I can tell you, if anyone were to tell me they can fix education problem and issue in any country over a period of 1 year and 2 years, that guy must be lying. There is no shortcut in education. By the time we do this, the real results that come out is 20 years from now, when the kids who get through the new education system, by the time they get on, that's when you really get. The second one is about making sure that the civil service have the capability to keep on transforming themselves. And let me just relate, in the article I covered 2 examples. We had an away day amongst the cabinet ministers about last year. And we got everybody, beginning of this year rather, everybody to sit down and ask the question together with the permanent secretaries. What are the 1 or 2 things that we will help to move forward with the civil service transformation? And we agreed the 3-step process, that all civil service, all ministries identify the key processes that have a big impact on the rakyat and the businesses. Number 2, identify for that process who is the best practice country in the world. And number 3, take that best practice from that country and improve it and adapt for local. So let me cite 2 examples. We concluded that one of them was our road signages are poor in Malaysia. You go and look at our road signages. Sometimes you can laugh or you can cry. So we then asked the ministry, who is the best practice? They went around looking, they said, well, you know, UK is quite good, actually best practice in their view. So they took some photograph of Kuantan, all the road signages in Kuantan, and compared them the one in London, in Bayswater, Lake District, the font size, and compared them. I tell you, the photograph, you can laugh. Some of our photograph, bawa pokok tau nampak lah, some of the way in which we put road signage. The first guy that put there, the second one put before, and then before, nobody see the first fellow. And because we didn't actually have proper rules in doing this. So now the program is being worked out. By the middle of next year, we should improve all the road signages in Kuantan. Obviously, we need to get all the municipal council to agree, everybody with JKR. Once we've done that, we can roll them out through the country. But the point here is this. If you start by asking how do you improve our road signages, we cannot move very far. But if you say who is the best practice and copy it, you can move really far. I had the same example in Johor for cancer treatment in Johor, it takes about 4 months for a patient to get through to do a chemotherapy. Last year alone, 13 patients died without any treatment. So what we're doing was to crush the lead time from 4 months to bring it down to 2 to 3 weeks. In fact, in Sarawak, it's already done 2 to 3 weeks. And so you don't have to look at the WHO standards. So some of those things that they're doing. So that's the second thing. The third one is innovation. Topa is right by saying if we don't innovate to produce our products and services that can compete in the world outside, then we will find it very difficult to win in the rest of the world. South Korea, how do they do it? Who can imagine 5 years ago that, Gangnam can come out and become a big hit? But I mean, nobody would ever imagine it. So I relate a story of a young man called Nick Azam. He produced a very boutique guitar amplifier. It's a tube amp. If you type Cheria Tone on your YouTube, you will find loads of customers buying his product from all over the world, 71 countries. Only he and the wife, plus a few Kelantanese workers. I bought one of his amplifiers, by the way. If you buy it, you notice it's not made in Malaysia, it's made in Kelantan. So, but he spends $0 on marketing because the product is damn good. So the guy does not need government subsidy. He is my favorite example of a successful young man. He does not need subsidy, he does not need government fund. He produces his product with his workers and they are selling like hotcakes. When I ordered my amplifier from him, I was number 28 in the queue. So that's a good example of what you needed to do. And finally, the fourth story is that if you can innovate, then we can grow our export. Topa is right. We cannot close our market. We must open our market to the rest of the world. But you cannot open to the rest of the world if you're not competitive. So to me, all Malaysians should now don't spend the whole time bashing government. People must ask the question, what can you do with your product and service so that it can win? In Germany, it can open market and win in China, it can win in the US. That is the question we should ask. What can you do with your product and services to win it out there? That's the attitude of South Korea. When we win and succeed in the future, it must be that we produce an equivalent of Samsung, an equivalent of Gangnam. I wouldn't want to do that, nonetheless. But that's what I mean. The market is beyond our shores. If we're all bashing each other looking at a small market, forget it. We have a small market. But the world market is our oyster. That is what the view of all of us must be outward looking, waiting to export. Those are the 4 points. I think those are key challenges we need to do moving forward.
Thank you very much for those last words. And a round of applause for, I think they've shared with us quite frankly and honestly, and also that they are working quite rigorously. I think the partnership between public and private sector, and of course we want the whole country to also feel that this is their transformation as well. So we'll keep working on that. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sharing this morning with us, and to our very distinguished panel for sharing the insight and thoughts for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wan Zaleha. Thank you to our esteemed panelists for that engaging session. And for your information, on behalf of the ETP team, have a great end of the year and also to a wonderful 2014. There are still some refreshments served at the back if you haven't had your lunch. So thank you again.